Grover?
I think so.
What letter is this?
Q.
Q. This is indeed a Q.
Froggy. Cleanup operation. Here's how this whole thing starts against Donald Trump. During the election, the Obama administration, which had done whatever it wants because the media is lost in this country, folks. There's no media. Forget it. That's dead and buried. The media's done. They don't do journalism anymore. It's activism, nothing more, right? The Obama administration had grown comfortable with the idea of weaponizing government against their political enemies. It had happened over and over again. We had the IRS scandal, we had the AP phone record scandal, the Jim Rosen Fox News scandal, and I ask you this, what happened to any of the people involved? Anyone? Yeah, the answer is nothing. These people are crazy. The Obama administration had gotten completely comfortable with the idea of abusing government for their political means. So what happens? This plan gets hatched, and I'm going to be candid with you. Where exactly it's hatched, nobody is yet sure of to this day. Matter of fact, if you're familiar with my commentary on Fox, I say often one of the great mysteries of this case is what's paragraph 1. Paragraph 1, what do I mean by that? When I was a federal agent, when you arrest someone, you have to do what's called an MR, a memorandum report. Paragraph 1 of that MR is always how the case started. I got a call from Jane Doe, bank fraud investigator, said this credit card number was stolen on April 14, 2015. I made a few calls, and the next thing you know, it's an 80-page report about this massive scheme. Paragraph 1, though, always lays it out. Always. Do you know to this day we still have no idea what paragraph 1, the why they started to spy on the Trump team was? Now, I get it. It was for political. I get that. But at some point, somebody, you have to understand, folks, had to put down on paper a semi-legitimate reason to start the most massive spying operation in a political campaign in U.S. history. Do you know nobody to this day will tell you what that is? I know what it is. So the first plan they do to hit the Trump team, folks, is they learn to manipulate these about queries in the NSA database. The NSA has a database of a whole boatload of information, metadata, texts, that kind of stuff. How it works is too complicated in the time I have. But what you can do is you can query that NSA system and you can get a whole lot of information. Well, what happens? This is plan A. This is how they're going to get the information. I hope, if I'm not following, please stop me, because this is important. The Obama administration figures out that through unmasking, in other words, wiretapping people, pretending they're targeting foreigners, and then querying information in this database, that they can get all the political opposition research in the world that they need against the Trump team. It's beautiful. No one's going to call them out. The media is on their side, right? But there's a good guy in this. There's a white hat. Somebody in the government sniffs this thing out. That's why I tell you, this wasn't plan A, this was the plan. They were going to unmask people, wiretap people, and they were going to query this NSA database and get all the information they needed about the Trump team. But somebody smells a problem, and he's not having it. And he's the white hat, he's the good guy in this story. And it's Mike Rogers of the NSA.
All right, welcome to the Patriot Hour. Got a few things lined up here, folks. We got Ben coming in. So let's go ahead and get him on in. Hey, how you doing this morning?
Doing great. Good to be remotely in the studio. Yes, big things are happening. Big shout out to all of our mods. Man, so much is going on. The Patriot Hour has been rocking and rolling this last couple of weeks, getting all kinds of truth out to you guys. Super excited times.
Yes, and I want to take a minute again, folks. Had some donations starting late November, I think my birthday, till a couple just trickling in. If I could remember, I think one was Christy Cotter, Lovin, Texas. Thank you so much. And several others. I'm going to actually get something together here later after this live stream me and Ben are doing for the coin winner. One of them that I got, and I got a video to go along with it, which is awesome. I just got to put that together. So if you're out there watching, the one person knows I've been in contact with them, so it's awesome. But
sweet.
That video we just played here, folks, we need to talk about the bigger picture here for, I think, a few minutes this morning.
Yeah, I would agree.
Talked about this. So this whole spying thing, that is a very legit thing that we're going to be really, one of the biggest things probably going to be uncovered from this whole political scandal, truth thing, involving the government, our government, the U.S. government. And it's going to be a real sad time in our history. Of course, we're all excited for it to stop, go away, bad actors go down, get in trouble, justice. But it is going to be a sad moment in our history that it was infiltrated. The biggest outcry here, and I think we could all agree on, is as they built up this data collecting, mass surveillance, everyone was worried that we were all being recorded and they got everything. And then it's like, well, I don't do nothing wrong. You can have all kinds of little personal battles with it, but the bottom line is they were doing it. Now, was it done to get everything on us, or was it done to help muddle the waters for the actual bad people? So they had like the needle in the haystack to find. They're saying it hasn't been successful really to find any terrorist or stop anything, because there's so much information in there. And if you're really doing something bad, you don't typically just text somebody, hey, we're going to do this tomorrow, and lay it out in a text that simple. So, and then on the outgoing thing for Obama, the last day in office, he signed paperwork to open the floodgates of how this information was looked at by multiple different agencies, because they knew the leaking would start under the Trump administration. It wasn't something Obama did under his own administration. It was the last outgoing day that he, muddled to where when the leak started for Trump, they couldn't really figure out who it was because it was so open. The floodgates are open. So that's another interesting piece of this story. But interesting. What are you guys' thoughts on that, if you have any? And good morning to everybody, by the way.
Yes, no, very interesting. I think we also have to keep in mind that when we talk about the mass collection of data, was it originally done? The hypothesis, could it be for these people? Always keep one thing in mind. These people have to go query a database. So data in and of itself could not be harmless. It's just going to take a human being to go perpetrate harm, to go out, like we see what's happening with the NSA servers being queried. We talked about, went over that scenario. So, the data is being used for good or for bad. It's there, and so we're hoping that those who are legitimately able to use those informations to get the quote unquote terrorists, the evil people, we're hoping that's going to be as well. We've talked about how the current administration can be using old laws and old executive orders that other presidents put into place, using that directly against them. Like, well, you said all information, and your information's out there too, so we can use that too against you. So there's definitely many angles to it.
And the bigger thing was, because this didn't, we all agree, it didn't happen overnight. It was step by step. New technology implemented as it came along, but as they did that and they built this system up all around the world, they had to, and I think Elle, she's in the room. I clicked into her live feed last night. It was very interesting because she was going to be going to her, town representatives council meeting, and
town hall.
It was town hall over 5G. Am I correct, Elle? So that's huge. That's them trying to implement this newer stuff. It's whenever it's quicker for us, it's also quicker for them, and they love real-time information. We all know that. So, but like you said, they promised this whole time to never, use things against us. This is for terrorists. But who, what is a terrorist, and who deems who a terrorist, and it gets real sketchy and itchy. And but here we know they used it against Trump, a guy coming in that wasn't part of their system, wasn't part of their club. Everyone, other people out there thinking, well, he's his own New World Order guy, and he's got his own crew he's bringing in, and there's a war against the New World Order groups. And I don't know, but to me, it doesn't seem that way, because he got this whole system pointed at him, and they were doing that to have an advantage, political, and know things on him, and know his moves and every step he was taking.
Yeah, there's definitely a silent war going on behind the scenes, and we've said many times before, 80% of what's going on behind the scenes we will never know, and will never come and see the light of day. And when it does, it probably will be like the Gulf of Tonkin incident that happened so long ago that most Americans don't really care, honestly. And when it comes out to be that this is happening, it's so far gone. So this is interesting, and how this is not happening now. So it's, again, it's logical thinking. However, it's not blindly following either.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, Elle, if you can get in there. You already said they're going to allow you in there, allow you to record. Is that something you'd be doing live, or you're just going to record it, or you're going to try to do a live stream? That's really cool. And what, if you can, type a little, what is it exactly, what is the premise? Is it over 5G? Is it a meeting board on that?
Is it the implementation of the 5G towers in your area, and they're now going over it? And if you can do, like Mike was saying, if you can get a live feed going, prop up your phone or have somebody or whatnot. If you can, we'll, hook up your live feed, hook it up, I should say, and stream it on through the Patriot Hour.
We drop your link down below, but we could also help beam it out. I'd pick it up on the Patriot Tech, and we can go live as well. But
real quick, Narrow Path 247 says, "What was the Gulf of Tonkin again?" Well, I guess you just got some homework for yourself. Time to go research the Gulf of Tonkin, and then once you come back and report back to us some of your amazing findings. Again, folks, these are rabbit holes.
Maybe, possibly, right?
Possibly, yeah. These are things that Mike and I have. This is years and years of research that we know. This is why, for us, when we see these patterns, we see coming out, we're not blindly following either. We're critically thinking. We're just not, going forward with our heads down to the ground. We're looking, seeing there's accountability, and we're seeing what's happening, and so that's why we have you guys to put a check on it and see what's going on. And we only want, we want good, right? So what does that look like? We're all believing and hoping what's happening now is good, because we're finding out truly how evil looks and how it has been operating for a long time. And so how do you define good versus evil? Is the Bible your authority, and so your morals are derived from that? Or is it through society morals? You take your pick, but I think how we define evil is pretty much ubiquitous to, I don't know, crimes against humanity, human trafficking. We can go on and on and on. These indictments are coming up. That's probably going to spell out a little bit more in legal detail what the evil is.
Yes. Now I see a lot of talk over the Gulf of Tonkin. Yeah, folks, the Gulf of Tonkin, according to people that were there, even like Robert McNamara, I believe, was one of them that came out years later, said they were all told to give this story out to the media. It just never happened. So when you tell people that, like, Vietnam was based on a lie and this never happened, they're like, Vietnam happened. Oh yeah, it happened. The Gulf of Tonkin incident possibly never happened. Our own ship wasn't fired upon to create the hype for Americans to support it. Like, what? They shot at one of our ships? Yes. Attack. Look at
Years
Pearl
later-
Harbor. We had 85% of the world against going to war. Pearl Harbor happened. We had 1 million men go sign up the next month, you know. So
Where was all of our battleships during Pearl Harbor attack? Where were they all at on some interesting... When it comes to the Gulf of Tonkin, it was more along the lines of what came out 40 and 50 years later.
Yeah.
Was all of the communication transcripts that were basically
they
going
declassed
to...
the rules of engagement in 1985,
Yes.
which was made available to the Vietnamese back then.
Yeah.
Which said
The
we
Viet
couldn't
Cong.
fire upon, or you know, if they and they
There's a
knew
certain
these rules.
a certain line, and so this is what we're talking about. So this is again research that we've done years ago, and of course these aren't subjects that we just slack off lightly, and we don't make these statements out of ignorance. I mean, we know as veterans ourselves, working with other veterans and working within the confines of the VA law and the VA system, the VA and the law tells you very clearly what is considered a conflict, time of war, when was it enacted, Congress get in. So most people don't follow that. Even most veterans don't follow that unless you're like Mike and I, helping other veterans possibly work out what they're going through. So it's kind of those little things that you take it, it's a nugget of truth, and you move on. And so it makes you a little bit more aware when you
Yeah.
see something too
I would
good to be
encourage
true,
everybody,
sorts.
you know, look into the sinking of the Lusitania,
Mm-hmm.
Gulf of Tonkin, Pearl Harbor. Most of you probably heard the mainstream. You know, you probably titter tatters. Did we have pre-knowledge? Did we hear all the chatter coming and have it broken and decoded? Did they know the date? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only difference between a false flag back then and a false flag now is now it's more technical, it's highly believable. There's more angles to cover because of the media and the internet coverage we have across the earth now. So these are the things that we always talk about. We know our history, we know what's happening. So when these current events are happening in our government right now, and whole floors are being locked down, and skiff rooms are being, I mean, things are happening that in my 40 years of existence, I haven't, even when I was a child, we getting this kind of stuff. This stuff didn't come out. I didn't hear the adults around me talking about second constitutions and skiff rooms and military operations. And I mean, and more people are talking about that now than ever on Monday morning on the old water cooler talk.
Yeah, I agree. These are household names we know now. So another interesting thing me and Ben were talking about the other day in Garage Talk was, and I might have brought it up yesterday, but it's really interesting that they have had all these people we're talking about, from like James Comey, the ex-head director of the FBI, all the way down to people like Mark Zuckerberg, coming out publicly, getting them on the record, and whether or not it's under oath, you know, it's still very public. They're sitting there. They know the TV cameras are on them. They know Facebook Live's going on them. They know that they're sitting in front of Congress, and they're willing to say what they say. And how could it be the exact opposite? How do they even stand a chance to sit there and tell a camera like, well, was I under oath? Duh. Oh, so you're willing to just lie to everybody all the time? Well, no, that's not what I said. Well, what are you saying? It makes it kind of rough for them to. So is it a thing here to get everybody kind of out there, everybody hearing this, what they say, and then what's going to come out? Instantly they proved themselves wrong if they're operating because we have information over here that proves otherwise. So keep that in mind as we move forward.
By the way, I just want to do a quick little comment. Ruben Urban says, as a Vietnam veteran, we will never be welcome back. I still feel the spit in my face in the 101st Airborne Camp Eagle, 69, 70 yard. Not marijuana for vets instead of their drugs. When we refer to Vietnam, World War I, World War II, if you've served in any of those conflicts, what we say, if you take it personally, then I'm not going to apologize for my words. Mike and I served the military as well, and we believe that the conflict that we both served in was a false narrative. Now, does that mean that Mike and I's service diminishes our love for our country? Absolutely not. So when we talk about these things, if you're unaware of it, please do the research, because we've had Vietnam veterans on this show who flat out told you.
I'm looking at that comment as a Vietnam vet.
Was
we will
it-
never. Yeah, I just take that as
Yeah,
he
we'd
probably
never-
got when he came back in the 70s or 60, or he got spit on at the airport.
Yeah, Woodman
which-
told us here on the show about how they treated it was abominable how they treated you guys. It was my uncle. I mean, it was completely shameless how they treated our veterans. And yeah, there's a lot of you guys, even a lot of veterans we work with. That's so. But when we even start looking into this, what do you say when these communication came out 50 years after the fact that clearly outlined what was happening? And that's why. And then the rules of engagement. And you ask, oh my gosh, and you talk to a Vietnam veteran like, well, that was why we couldn't go this far. We couldn't go down that trail. So by all means, man, we got lots of love. And I still give lots of love to all of the Vietnam veterans, because you guys went and had no support of the government, and
never
you guys came back, and it was
the foot soldier, the boots on the ground never dictated this, or my dad, Vietnam, canine handler, 2 Purple Hearts. He was over there, and bottom line is they're taking our young men, women now, and if they put you in a harmful situation, hand you a gun, and even if at this last minute you're like, I don't know about this, and I don't think I want to be here, and a couple bullets fly by, you're gonna do everything you can to survive. At that point, that kicks in. That's a natural instinct.
Yes, exactly. And so it's this is what we're hoping, knowing all this information, like Mike and I are talking about. That's why we believe all of this is going to be changing for like the trajectory of our nation, and these things that are being passed should be hopefully solidified for many, 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 many years to come. Like our children, our children's children can now be, oh no, power of we have all the control of the government. It's the people that have it, as natural as it is, where now people don't believe that. They put all their trust and hope and faith into the District of Columbia and that little area that we call the government, that we know is full of all kinds of swampish monsters. And this is where it comes in, folks, is to research everything. But again, all the research, Mike has said it before, a lot of this research, pretty much all spider webs, it all ties in, it all flows into kind of one central idea. And so we're kind of the tip of the spear here. A lot of the guests that the Patriot Hour has on, myself, Woodman, Scott, a lot of these guys, well, they all have their own. We all have our own perspective on our experiences in life, and that's what we value that. And the experience is great. I was in the Army. My military experience was vastly different than what Mike's was. He was in the Navy. We both trained at a basic combat level, because every soldier trains at a basic combat level, and then you get into your expertise. So the commonality that Mike and I have is we both signed our names in the dotted line like everybody else, and you defended the man to the left and right of you. That doesn't take away from we were in a country under false narratives.
Yeah.
And so and I'm honestly afraid I don't want that to happen to my children. Well, they have to go off and go to war because there's a false narrative, and there's a chance they don't come back. And it comes out, well, we were there for something else. I'm like, wow, we weren't there for liberty and freedom and peace and giving it back to the people. And however the people want, that's what they get, because it's their country.
It's kind of funny. It's like, folks, this is regardless if it's always started by man. Truly is. There's no way around that wars are started by man. Is it started for corrupt reasons or just the most perfect blissful reasons? It's kind of an oxymoron statement, but most would argue, most would argue it's always started for crap and no good. Well, then therefore, you can see how this kind of works. And I get it. Once something's started, then it's all out of hand. But if that's the true case, that it's a massive thing that really are starting wars, making kids disappear, and then the only little tidbits we have of wars are because of the people that are so propaganda by what they see every day, and maybe we also have copycat people that do kidnap because that's so prevalent in the world, movies, and they get it in their head, and now they do it. So we still always have a few bad apples spread out among us. But I think if you were to take away the big puppet hand that starts the bigger things of it, we'd be able to harness with law the small ones. I don't know.
I think, no, you're right. And the community would band together. I mean, think about it. If a whole community, let's say 3,000 people, small town, right? You have a family in that town who's doing evil things, and the whole town knows it, and the cops don't really do anything because they're not really breaking the legal law, but they know stuff is going on. How about that community all bands together and goes that and say, we as a community don't like what you're doing here. Let's go, oh, that's racist. We used to do that when we used to all back in the South and that kind of stuff. And it's like, isn't that how we banded together and we say, as a whole, the people we feel these are going to be a certain guidelines, and these are the things that we don't do as a whole, and we kind of band together, and we got our Declaration of Independence from a tyrannical king. So we don't want to be ruled by a king, and so there is an idea of, if we can, enough of us think one way, okay, there's that. All right, well, if we all think one way, if we all pass a law, killing is good because we all say it's good, then there's those ad hominem arguments you can have. But logically speaking, good people will band together to defend what's right and good. Bottom line.
It's natural. That's what my whole thing was, is like, I've looked into so much angle. What we're hearing is happening now, and what I'm physically seeing with my own eyes and listening to seems to be pretty positive. And if I have to look into all the actual positive that it really seems to be, to find that it just leads to some dirtier, darker, twisted plan, that sucks. But I wouldn't not go with the good stuff, like Trump signing stuff to stop child human human rights abuse. That scares me more than just letting it go on. I don't know. It just seems to be the right thing to do. And
Yes.
that's all we really have is,
Well, we have an old
pass
saying
this
that
bill or don't pass this bill. It seems to be good. I'm going to have to go with it. If I'm duped
If it
and
looks-
it twists to lean to something else, I don't know. But
Well, thinking logically, if it looks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, if it acts like a duck, then let's go ahead and call it a duck. So if President Trump is doing these executive orders, and more so than not, there's some of them, yes, that don't pertain that I have questions about, but more so than not, most of the executive orders are for good, human rights, that kind of stuff. So that's looking good. The executive order is written pretty good. It looks good to me. I'm going to go with it's pretty good. Now, until I get other information, then I can say, wait a minute, I didn't know this executive order tied in and actually was in tandem to this active one. Oh, I never knew that. Oh, that puts a different light in that particular thing. That hasn't happened yet.
I don't see, exactly. I'll address a quick question here. I see Ruben Urban. Again, thank you for your service, and thank us for serving again, doing the show. We appreciate that. Yes, I think the VA probably will start giving out marijuana to vets eventually, but that's going to take the federal government has to decriminalize or just quit looking into marijuana altogether before the VA, since they're federally funded. All right, even though there's all these states that have recreational medicinal marijuana, they don't operate with cash yet. That's all cash and carry, because none of the banks will work with any of the states in the union, because they can be hit up on racketeering charges, drug laundering, all that stuff that entailed that the federal government set up under their specific rules out of DC to impose on all the states. Until they unharness that, I don't think the VA will ever be able to move forward with giving vets marijuana. But you could probably still toke it up if you want. I'm sure you do.
Hey, that's, the bottom line. Yes, Mike, 'cause it's very clearly you're talking. Those of you who subscribe and are following and have been longtime listeners and watchers, you understand separate bodies of law. You understand how that works and who's jurisdiction over who by now. So if we say it's at a state level versus a federal level, there should be no misunderstanding on that one for sure, and yeah, I would agree. I'd rather the government be giving out veterans more of a homeopathic remedy versus big pharma.
And
President Trump has talked about that as well.
I've never, if that's what somebody desires, evidently people have come to the conclusion that marijuana works for them and works for them well. I've never met a raging marijuana user that's attacked me. I have had drunks verbally attack me and try to assault me when they're drunk. So, and, not to mention them being so incoherent, even myself at times in my past of drinking too much. And I've never,
Hey, you understand there's definitely that rabbit hole of going down of, well, you take, Advil and that rips holes in your tummy, but you won't take something that doesn't, again, that's a personal choice.
Yes,
and again, here,
all we're saying to the people out here watching, I don't judge people. So it's like this. Some of you out there do not smoke. Some of you do. I'm sure everyone's maybe tried it, maybe not everybody, but those who like that, let them do it. It doesn't harm you. It's, and then those of you that maybe like to drink, those of you that do like to take pills, I take as less pills as I can ever. They're just harsh on me. I can't take any of the painkiller ones that make me vomit, puke, nauseous.
And again, for every other broke vet out there, you understand exactly what Mike is telling you. So we try our best to keep on the straight and narrow when it comes to the health. Your personal health is very critical because, on a side note, if this 10 days of darkness, how are you going to be able to take care of your family if you're hobbling around and all sick to your stomach and bleeding and out of your stomach? I mean, think about it. If you don't take care of your own personal health, who is?
Somebody put cocaine as a wonderful drug. If that's what ticks your boat, or if that's what ticks your heart, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's all up for debate when it comes to that stuff. I mean, the thing is I think there's a
moderation in everything, though. I mean,
yes.
Folks. I mean, even pills, if you can, cycle off of them. I'm just, there's always a nice little cleansing point.
Too much ice cream is extremely bad for your liver and your heart and your kidneys. So if we could say, hey, don't eat too much ice cream. In fact, try to eat more frozen yogurt. I mean, hey, we know that. Don't
dip your bacon in the bacon grease. All right, folks. It's not au jus.
Don't grease it up. Yeah, it's not bacon au jus. Yeah.
A little bit of bacon au jus.
Yeah, but with all that being said,
I love that word.
Au jus, yeah. It's Mike and I have always championed your freedom of choice, your right to choose and eat and do what you feel as long as it doesn't harm those around you.
Because we're about freedom, folks. That's all. If it's in our mission statement, we support freedom and liberty for all. So we can, I'd rather argue with my fellow citizen about a couple things than not be able to argue and have the free speech to do so.
And be afraid of saying a word. They're going to call the police and get you locked up because you said speech that was deemed illegal by your government.
Yes. Au jus.
Bacon au jus.
Sausage rolled in bacon. Jeez.
So, I mean, you got to understand, too, this is coming at you at all levels. I mean, we talked about, the food. I think Elle is talking about the going there to do a thing about the 5G and some of their worries and concerns about that. We're talking about welfare states. We're talking about what's happening in D.C. There's a lot of stuff going on. Mike and I talk about GMO, genetically modified organisms, which is the food we eat. We've always talked about, hey, Mike and was just talking about the old cherry tomato plants he had in the back and some other fruit he was growing. And why don't our mainstream narrative promote, hey, you should do a garden this year? The government's going to give you subsidies on all seeds. How come they don't do that? I mean, there's so many things that we think they can be doing, but we understand that, again, there's bigger things at play, because obviously taking care of yourself, because the government's not going to. What did Bill Cooper always tell us? When do police come and help you? After the fact that crime has been committed. They don't come there before the crime's been committed to stop the crime. They're always there after the fact. They assume that you have a bit of independence and can defend and take care of yourself. That's why you have the rights of your private property and no search and seizure of effects and the right to defend yourself, because they're saying, hey, we can't be there all the time to help you out. Only on the big stuff like wars and things like that we can't, that they haven't, I think, but hopefully in the future protect us from. But if you stop and think about it, they're depending on you, the individual.
Yeah, it's all a form of control. If you know the NWO's old, what was that movie where they tried to predict, was it Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where they were able to arrest it was only like an hour or so ahead of something, or maybe the
premise
hours.
Of that, exactly. They had 3 individuals who could see into the future. They were soothsayers, future readers, and from their future predictions, the little ball would come down and say, "Oh, this guy is gonna kill that person tomorrow at 3:00," and they have like a 99%, 100%, efficiency, and there's no crime. And all that thing, Hollywood is not too far off. We've told you many times that they have a lot of truth and they encompass it in lies. Like it's 100 years in the future, there's no crime, and that could be now actually, but they just choose not to roll out that idea. So
what do we think about we all know, all of us patriots know, that the Russia dossier is a complete an utter nothing more than a giant-sized piece of toilet paper that they paid a lot of money for. And we know that was from Hillary Clinton, by the way, and the DNC. But even the 2 people that broke the story and brought that out to the world, that's led to all these investigations, a 2-year Robert Mueller. Now they're even coming out and saying, man, nothing's seen. It's all crap. Not one thing is verifiable that's worth anything in there. And
interesting. Well, you think about it. This is where now Mike and I are not a part of the investigatory team. We didn't go to Washington. We're not like some other outlets that put in FOIA requests. But this is how we can tell you right now, not 100%, but with almost 100% certainty, why we believe the dossier is so incredibly fake. Because Trump's still president. Nothing's happened. If this was real, what they're claiming, this is why it's people like, they're claiming to impeach the president for colluding with another country. This is like an act of treason almost.
Hold on,
election.
let's address this. We do have possibly a troll in the room. His name's Joe Booty. He claims not to be a troll. He served his nation. I served my New York nation.
Your New York nation.
I don't
know.
But anyway, he says everything we're saying is just words. Once again, nothing but words. The deep state is winning. All right, so we've had 40 plus taken out of the head of the FBI and the DOJ. Tons of people out of the intelligence communities leave after Trump won. We have tons of people on both sides of the, left and right, leaving D.C., not seeking re-election. That's literally the swamp draining right in front of you, buddy. And not to mention all the CEOs around the world. What'd you say now?
Well, I was going to say I believe they definitely know our stance on it. What and I wasn't really paying attention. Obviously, I'm trying to look at the camera at you beautiful people. But instead of making like a comment like that, what evidence do you have to support your statement?
Yeah, what's your
'Cause,
evidence?
here at the Patriot Hour, even if we're wrong and the evidence that we got was either tainted or we got different information, I am more than happy to say we were wrong. Hey, let's move on.
So
Let's
how
move
should it go
forward.
down, Joe Booty? They got to walk away from their crimes. So what? Well, that's for now. What do they arrest person by person, one by one? Is that how they take the mob down? If we have a system that's in play, it's no different than a very, very organized mob. They're just at the highest level, and you don't take down one or two. You're going to take them down almost all at once. So yeah, people leaving is a tall tale sign that they give up. Doesn't negate the fact that when the crimes come down, that they don't get hemmed up at that point. Anything else would, if this is a true military op at the highest levels, none of us would be able to figure it out. None of you at home sitting on your couch watching tons of videos on YouTube and then looking at some mainstream news articles like we're doing, you're going to be able to crack this, because if you can crack it, then the enemy would be able to crack it and know everything. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here, especially,
Oh, well,
you know.
yeah, I will say this much. I'll give my 2 cents on the comment. So Joe Booty, his last one's, I believe nothing until I see handcuffs. Sorry.
That's fine.
Well, I would agree with you. I would agree with you in the statement that I anxiously too want to see handcuffs so incredibly bad. I yearn to have them paraded across mainstream media in handcuffs, all glittered up in their orange jumpsuits. Is that going to happen?
Yeah, what if we
I don't
never
think
see it on
so.
mainstream? What if they refuse to play it because it's
Well,
not
I
part
think
of their
federal
agenda?
handcuffs, for one, you don't get federally handcuffed. You're escorted by a plane. You go to Gitmo. We don't really see that kind of stuff. I mean, if it is, if military and all this kind of stuff, think logically. What has happened in our history that we can align with this? Mike made a great point. The mob. What time in our history was there a huge organization hell bent on making money and evil was their way to make money? The mob. Well, we couldn't take them down for years and years and years and years because everybody wanted to see them paraded in front of the news with handcuffs. But what they didn't understand is there is hundreds of ongoing investigations that if this one guy came on the news with handcuffs, well, then this guy would go run and we'd never get him. So moves and counter moves. So we've said this before in a few episodes back, why most likely you probably won't see the mainstream news show them on handcuffs. What you probably will see, though, is them sitting in a military tribunal with their hand raised and whatever like that, saying, hey, I'm going to say this, and they're going to start coming out with all they're saying, and they're going to be escorted away.
No, I mean, we think that there are already some channels, mainstream folks, and this is, again, if you're into looking into the truth, finding the truth, connecting the dots, you have to flip on some of these other channels. I don't know how you get your information. If you only watch things that you like to hear, which you're not wrong in watching the Patriot Hour, of course, but you have to, if you're actually in the research, you have to look at bad stuff. You're going to look at bad stuff. You're going to hear false things, but that's how it works. You can get tidbits of truth, but some of them are actually starting to report some honest stuff. And is that a last desperate hope of like, like they know what's coming at this point. They know that the whole thing for 2 years they've been spinning has been wrong. And then they're going to come out with some crap answer at the very end, act like, well, this is what we were told. Well, of course you were. You took people's words and ran with it instead of doing investigative work. So they're starting to report on it. Why? Maybe to have a small hope that they can survive.
That's
the
a
turnover
good point. No, how
and
many
have some
times
credibility,
has,
a little bit of credibility, maybe. I don't know.
I can honestly say I think the mainstream media is a lot more careful now when they quote stuff because we don't trust them. One of the only strangleholds the mainstream media has on our nation and the earth, I would say, is trust. They have our trust. Come here. Don't go there. Come here. We can tell you what the truth is. And so if you're so used to that spoon-fed.
Yeah. How about Joe Buddy? Do you agree that Trump has signed an executive order last year to stop human rights abuse and what is entailed in that? Like, he made it a state of a national emergency. That involves funding. It makes it a priority. They're allowed to create agencies secretly to start looking at the other agencies that we already have that haven't been doing nothing. Who knows what kind of year-long, last 2 years of what's really been going on secretly looking at agencies that haven't been doing their damn job. So, but just off the face of it, he signed an executive order for human rights. Then, just a week ago, he signed an enhancement to that to make people that are charged with human trafficking of kids and whatnot to pay retribution to the families or the victims if they're still alive. And that entails organizations that partake. I mean, why is he setting all this up? Why is all these dominoes set up? I get that arrest is the very last thing that happens. One of the last things.
With your original questions to this guy, Joe Booty, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? And we're going to probably leave that to you.
Is it good or is it bad? And what do you think it means? Nothing. It's just why hasn't any other administration put up this kind of stuff? If you're combating a war on drugs, if you're combating a war on human trafficking, wouldn't you set up everything to make it real undesirable for the bad people to operate? Or do you just, leave it? So, very good question. Yes or no? What do you think? Is that a good thing? Is that a positive step in the right direction? Or is it just all for show? I mean, these are facts.
We know that executive orders can be amended, can be dissolved by the next administration. We understand that very clearly. We've also pointed out that it would also show the moral integrity of the next administration if they did start, I wouldn't say abolishing, but dismantling and these executive orders from this particular administration. Again, we always see it's a condition of the heart when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's very clear. Mike and I, you obviously know our stance on some of these executive orders. We've covered them extensively. And if you would like to see how extensive these executive orders are, look in the past episodes in the Patriot Hour and get educated on these executive orders and how they apply to you as a individual and how they apply to our nation. We went over that extensively. So I would say that some of these questions you guys have, if you're just coming on and you're new to the channel, you're new to this kind of stuff, by far.
What's up, James Neal? James Neal is in the house.
There it is.
On that note, that's a good point. I would ask all of you, I'll even play the devil's advocate. Ben, what do you think if we all agree there's all these bad actors, deep state, whatever, and they're actually leaving? They're just announcing, I'm not seeking re-election. I'm just going to go back home to Wisconsin where I'm originally from, live on the farm. For some reason, I'm just done here. And if we're getting so much of that, is that better than having them stay there like they've been? Everyone's been there, and Trump talked about draining the swamp. So all these people are leaving. Now people are like, oh, yeah, they're just leaving.
If that's
all that happens,
in my opinion, I think this is a first step. The people we think are quietly going away, well, I believe that come January 1st of 2019, that what they did, they may be going quietly away to their country homes. But now, once this apparatus starts gearing up about all these crimes committed before January 1st of 2019 versus after January 1st, we covered those executive orders. These people are still going to get hemmed up. They may be at home and they're thinking they're retiring.
Might be under their bed, walked away, hiding.
They might be hiding. We don't know. They're not going away. A lot of people say, well, I'm not seeking re-election. This is what they're telling us on a public level, a public face. The fact that they're stepping down and going away and not seeking re-election means one of two things. Either you're too old and you're retiring and you're going through the normal process, which we've had some of those. I'll give you that much. We've had some
normally
people step down.
It's always a trickle.
But
like the military's always got new people coming and old people.
That's
going.
the way the machine works. But at this level, so I don't think these people are going to quietly go away to their homes and go live out the rest of their lives all quietly, never again going in the public and representing eyes. I think that what's happening is the swamp is being drained. These positions, seats being held by these individuals are now being cleared out. Get that out of that seat. Don't worry, you're going to go away. We're going to come back to you, though. We're getting you out of the seat of power, getting you out of the governmental seat. You're going away. You're stepping down. You're going to do whatever. They're cleaning the quote-unquote house. And
so what if you had all these bad people that we know of that we all think to be bad, and they came and arrested everybody all at once in one day in their government offices? Wouldn't that devastate the federal government then if we left all these seats open all at once? And is this a strategic spot of it too?
That could put a hiccup in how we vote for things. If there's not enough seats filled and you have it'd put a huge hiccup in our system if all at once. So do you do it all at once, or do you already have different things in position so that when you do the massive roundup, you have your fail safes ready to go? This is a true military operation, every military operation has its fail safes. If this happens, boom. What do they tell you? If we have one bombing mission, we're going to send 2 more behind it to make sure that bombing mission as a whole the mission is complete. Maybe, so well, I don't think this is the first step when they go away. I think something's coming back around to them.
And they talked about this, folks. Somebody said, isn't that what we need? Well, yeah, in a way. But the story goes here that before Trump, the military was ready to move in on Obama for serious treasonous crimes. And they could have done a military coup and just but the media was so complicit with the Obama administration. He could do no wrong other than maybe like Fox News was on his butt a little bit, but they weren't loud enough. And so you got to understand that they already thought to do it one of 2 ways. This organic, slow roll, organic showing to the public, let these people expose themselves. Or we all wake up one day 4 years ago and just all these people are arrested, and then we almost think like, what's going on? I never heard anything bad that Obama did. The media's only showed all his great things, and so they would have had huge amounts of riots, maybe civil uncertainty, So this is the way they did it. This is the option that they went with. They weren't going to do some kind of military coup. They were going to get a guy in and have him expose everything. And it's, I would say this, even if it's all bull crap, this and that, and these people are dropping at a rapid level, left and right, Republicans, Democrats equally, coming out, and you look at the total number of people that have gotten out. A lot of bad people quit the minute Trump run too. You listen to that story with Mike Rogers and the skiff room. That started with the intel, the people that were harnessed really doing this bad stuff. Like, they caught wind of what we were doing, and that Mike Rogers knew we were currying the system and going way outside of our
big
means. Folks, I'm telling you, all that leads to all this, and these people way out here are trickling out of D.C. And if nothing more happens, it's almost like Ben, for years and years, our local Legion we used to go to and visit quite often, years after years, we'd always have bad seeds, so to say, stealing things, taking money. And the common thing there was just to get them out, press no charges, but they were banned and they never to come back. And that was always fine with the locals. And in a way, you can press the charges or you can get them out of there. But one thing is you don't keep them in. And that's kind of what's happening here in D.C. So I'm already happy to a degree that tons of people are gone, going away, or soon to go away. Yes. Secondly, I would love to see the ones that did things wrong, if there's stuff proving it, and they got the evidence, to be arrested, tried for treason, for those who are guilty of it. Not everybody. Everyone's involvement. A lot of people are hinged up on blackmail, and they done things, but that doesn't mean anything more. It still means they did wrong. They did it for a reason. typically, you have a reason. So keep that in mind, folks.
No, exactly. And when you research this kind of stuff on your own, remember, always think to yourself, it's not just one article. Mike and I were talking in Garage Talk, and one of the things that we read lots of statistical reports, the Gallup News and things like that, the Gallup statistic reports, and one of them that came out had something that most millennials, now I'm not going to drop the numbers because I don't really know how, anyways, most millennials will only read the title of an article. They'll read the potatoes of the article and never get into the meat of the article. And Mike was commenting in Garage Talk, it's like, how do you educate somebody who only reads the title of an article because the actual article is just too much to read, it takes too much time. So now we are a headline news society, and you're only getting a small, minute tip of the iceberg, and they have no idea what the thing's about, only off of the title.
Yeah, no, that's I heard that somewhere, and it was, again, yes. So the local news that I have on my feed, like on Twitter, Facebook, they're really good at their title will just put an idea in your head that's totally false. Like, 7-year-old girl dies at the border in the custody of Border Patrol. Those are facts, but that's how they label their headline. You're like, oh my gosh, what did they do to her? If you're curious enough, you're going to click on their news article, and then it tells you that she was barely tells you, but you can get out of it that, well, that was her traveling with the people, and by the time they got caught, and she was severely dehydrated and dying. And of course, they took her in their arms, and it's like, she died. She died in your arms.
In your arms.
It's pretty sick, but that's how they operate, folks.
Well, there's a little bit of talk in the chat room here about martial law and what do we think about, Ruben Urban says, Mike and Ben, please answer this on the martial law in the chat rooms. Is this real? Your best thought or real thoughts? Thank you. Well, again, hey, to everybody else watching here, we've covered a few episodes. That was actually I should say, little mini series, almost 3 or 4 episodes about the courts, martial, and some of the. I think Mike went over the habeas corpus. Martial law is in our Constitution, folks. If you understand that the Constitution was for the United States to put the District of Columbia in check, to not become more tyrannical than the last regime leader we came from, the king. So is martial law going to happen? Well, how do you get military tribunals? Do you do those in the civilian court? And how do you try a civilian in military court? So these are the episodes that we went over to describe martial law is not going to be that, in our opinion, not going to be this Red Dawn running for the hills and all this kind of stuff. And there is a body of law that falls under the courts martial, and some of these things. Again, I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but according to the executive orders, according to the Constitution, our research, what is martial law and why is it enacted, and what does the second Constitution of our originally penned Constitution let us know what our God-given right is? You put those 2 and 2 together, you say that is military martial law going to happen? I think it most likely is going to happen. What is it going to look like? That's to be expected. I don't think it's coming door to door. There's too many Americans that are. Yes,
or is it going to stick to its? So I've heard other channels like, I don't like martial law, and I think this is how we got into this. And we looked. I was like, well, do you support the Constitution? Yes, I like my free speech, and I like the Fourth Amendment, my second, my third. And then it's like, well, then there's a thing in there, martial law. That's the one area I don't like. We need to, well, we can maybe change that then. That would be something. But I don't know. It is in there, though. We figured that out. Yeah, folks.
And there's definitely unrest at our borders, people trying to come in on a massive level. There's national emergency at state against where we've been at war.
Or
We've talked
like
about all
under
of this.
Katrina, right? The hurricane there. Then they
We've
kind
been
of
under a state of war since, like we talked about 9/11. Ever since then, we've been in a state of war. And so courts martials, if you think about it, we're already, since 9/11, we've already been under the courts martial because we're at time of war. That's why Mike and I talk about you can get shot on watch in the military at time of war if you fall asleep. Where if it's during peacetime, you just get a slap on the wrist. You get in trouble pretty bad, but you don't get killed. You don't get punished by death. And there's a reason, because that little tiny we're at war.
Thumper Rose. I think only high military level clearances will be military courts. Possibly, but you can go to military tribunals if you're actually looking like Abraham Lincoln. Did they have John Wilkes Booth tried for tribunals because he coordinated with foreign government, and he wasn't a government employee. I don't think.
Nope, he's a civilian.
He was a civilian.
He was an actor, I think he was. Yeah.
There you go. He was an actor, civilian, but he coordinated with foreign governments to kill Abraham Lincoln.
Society, and they were attached to. Yeah, he got charged with conspiring with the enemy during time of war, thus getting the treason. And so, I mean, there you go, people. Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. What did I look up the other day that we were both blown away by? Treason. Only person ever tried for it.
Ever executed. No, ever executed from treason.
Only person, one person. It was over taking down the flag during the Civil War. Right? Civil, was it?
Yep. I think it was the Civil War.
Yeah, folks. So this guy was
on the spot.
Yes, I think it was like
it was before. Yeah, it was during our Civil War. We looked this up. We were like, well, wait a minute. Well, treason. The only time a man got actually the penalty of death for committing a treasonous act was actually fulfilled for this man during a battle, and I don't know which one. Again, please, go look this up. Let us know which one it was, what battle, whatnot.
Yeah.
But he was pulling down the American flag, which symbolizes, remember, when a flag is raised in a facility, that means that's that sovereign territory. They're defending that. Military people would understand.
Yes.
But
so check
he
it
touched
out.
To move it down, and he got shot right in the spot for touching the flag. And you got these liberals burning the flag in the front street, in the front DC for protest, freedom of speech. I'm
going to hit on our mods here. Hit on a topic they were just discussing. I'll start with Chris Olson. He is now. All right, just to take care of the Antifa types who lose their minds over arrest. I agree. So that's what we came to the conclusion of, and that we promote here. And I'm not saying put any faith in this, but this is what it would mean. Of course, there's these intelligence gathering apparatuses, and if used for good, which is good for us, means they're beaming in and getting all the information from the bad guys, not using it against somebody who's running for the presidential election. Also, it talks about this martial law to, do something during a period of civil unrest for those who are trying to do stupid things. We've all have it bashed in our heads that, that means they're going to come around, take guns. We can't do this. All of our civil liberties are gone. Some of that is true. I don't think they're instantly, wanting to gather up guns or any of these other things. But movies have really got us in a shaded way there. So don't let people drive you. Don't let people instill fear. But again, have some things ready. Be prepared for everything. But I had to come to the conclusion, and it is really hard, that if we do go into a small form of it, that it is not directed at us. With everything I've been seeing, it's going to be directed for the safety of every man, woman, and child, rather than rounding up every man, woman, and child.
Now, another thing to keep in mind, you guys, is when we say, or when you ask us about martial law, you need to clearly understand that martial law is not going to be nationwide. Martial law clearly is described in our Constitution. If there is an area where the local law enforcement, the local community cannot protect themselves from a foreign entity. There is invaders coming in. So hypothetically, and I'm trying to explain this to you guys, they would be martial law declared in southern Texas along the border, therefore allowing more military control of our border. Why? There is a perceived invasion from a foreign entity coming, and that part of the state needs to be under martial law to protect the citizens, all of Americans, pretty much all of the Americans. Now, when people say, oh, they're going to come for our guns, like Mike said, what's been pretty much propagandized to you over the years is when they say martial law, that's like the whole entire country. That's like DC falling, the SHTF kind of stuff happening. But you realize martial law is like a strategic scalpel. You can carve out little tiny sections of the nation that are under martial law. Just like, are we in when a hurricane hits Katrina, is every 50 state under a national emergency, or
That's
no?
a state of
just
emergency.
That area, state of emergency. So there's also a state of martial law. Like Mike was talking about, the difference between a state you live in or a state of mind. It's two different things. And so what will happen is how can you have civilian people tried at the military level? You have to have military courts. Military courts don't operate on civilians. It's a logical thinking. So does martial law have to be enacted? I think to save some parts of our border in our country where we're having literally invasion of people coming in, and not
There's
just
going to be hot pockets.
refugees. Hot pockets. So
No matter
there's
what,
that
folks.
aspect. And exactly, Thumper Rose, martial law doesn't mean lock down the nation. The only time martial law would be locking down the nation is if we were basically invaded by another superpower and that all communication, the DC was down, the movie apocalyptic type stuff. But if that happens, you're not watching us. I'm not paying my bills. I mean, think about it, people. It's like, it's
Thumper Rose. She corrected herself. She put like Marshall.
marital.
Like a marshal. Marshal of the law. No, folks, exactly. Think what you want. We're not telling you either way. I know what the movies have portrayed over the, anytime they've showed martial law. I don't beg it. It's probably the least, thing in the Constitution I truly as well like to read and look at. But I think it was designed there, like most other things, as a good. If you pervert it and use it for really bad, yeah, it can go in a really bad way. You already have policing in all these states. It just means now the military has control over that. And say, well, that's way worse. I don't trust the military. Okay. I don't know how that's going to go down or how it's going to look. And I guarantee, like most other things, it won't affect anybody. That's the biggest thing, folks. You could turn all this off and live your life, and most things will not be affected right around you. I mean, you can come up out of that after 10 years and realize, what? I can't operate like that no more, or something maybe, or I don't know. I mean, things can change, but
I think we can. I was gonna. Yesterday, you were talking about, and this can probably be the roundup or the wrap up for the whole.
Yes, I agree. We're at an
prepping
hour.
and things like this. What happened? And this is what you said, Mike, in Garage Talk. What happened to people in the '80s that spent all this money for bunkers and food and all this kind of stuff? And back in the '90s, the Y2K people and all these things happened. What about all their food and all their bunkers? And the crazy amount of prepping that happened for long. Well, their food's out of date. Their bunkers are probably all filled in with something else because they can't afford this kind of stuff. When we talk about being aware of your environment and our government, it's more of a way of life. You're not going to go out and buy 50 million MREs and put them in your basement for 10-year storage. No, you buy canned food that you already eat. Some of that stuff lasts for 5 years. That's a no-brainer. I mean, being aware of your environment does not mean that you're some extreme tinfoil hat wearing individual. It just means that you take individual responsibility for how you choose to prepare you and your family for life. That's it. You can't say, well, what should I do? How much should I get? It's an individual thing. If you feel that you need this much to feel better when you lay your head in the pillow at night, so be it. So this whole buy an underground bunker, prep for 10 years, do this kind of stuff.
Folks, there's a
Crazy.
lot of people that claim to be patriots in this country, and a lot of people claiming to do the right thing, and I truly think that they are. But if something like that happens, when crap goes down and you have all this going on, there's going to be a lot of people, like we said, that have been claimed all this time to be patriots, but they will be out there looting and pillaging. And if you want to broadcast how much stuff you got and this and that, then everyone knows where to come. And is it that wrong for your neighbor that didn't prep so much to come over and knock on your door, and you're just going to blow them away? That's the mentality you get to. I'm surviving now. And I mean, the same cause can be said for all the illegals coming across the border, and they're just hungry. All these same people claim that they're just hungry, and poor them, they don't have anything. So what's the difference when you're all prepped up and your neighbor don't have nothing? And then when he comes over, you to blow him away. Is that what you do? Or do you take them in and start feeding them? Or you get real selfish with what you got because you prepped and they didn't? And you got to figure all that out.
This is
you
where
got to figure that out. You should always have something. You shouldn't, I granted, some people, have very limited funds. I understand that, and you can only do what you can do. So what does the rest of everyone feel like that? That's why you should team up with people. You really should have a plan to get with some friends. Everyone's got friends. We're all friends, but let's say you connect and you got friends in the real world, not on the internet, away from keyboard. You team up with them, you get a plan. Together you guys have, you're going to be bringing all the medical supplies when you bunk out there and bug out, and they got the food. Maybe you've contributed food to the area because your place ain't so great because you live in the city and right on the outskirts of the city, and you're in an apartment building, but this friend lives out on some acreage and you guys can really hunker down out there. That, I have things like that and plan and play. Yeah. Ben does. This is how it works. So that stuff you plan, you don't have to dwell on it.
Yeah, and you don't live your life over it, and you don't. Yeah,
because like he said, if you're in a state of panic mode, the same people, just because you came to a state of panic mode today or yesterday or last week, there's been other people that have been in a state of panic mode since 1978 and been prepping since then. And what can you say? Oh, they're an idiot and they weren't in tune to everything because there was nothing happening back then. Well, if you were all in tune to the evil ways that were building up, this is before some of the more crazy intelligence gathering came in, you would have saw all that built up, and either all of those would have triggered you to be like, oh, it's getting worse. It's a progressive thing. For us, it might be our whole life that it took, but in the scheme of things, it's a blink of an eye. So,
and again, we don't panic about this stuff because what do we always tell you? In anything in life, preparation favors victory. So researching what we're talking about, some person, habeas corpus is null and void under martial law. Good, you're doing some research. This is awesome. Our last few episodes over that covers exactly quick and easy, boom, bang, boom, bing. So how can you do that to civilians? This is where it all comes in. So if you understand kind of what's going on, something is coming. There's no denying something's happening. And if you do nothing, something is happening. Okay, you can do something and something's still happening. And I know this is kind of weird, like circular reasoning, but if you prepare how you feel, you will only be doing good, right? Even the ants prepare for winter, and birds gather up, things, and they do things to prepare for seasons. Think about this as a season coming up, and you're preparing for the season.
Yeah.
It could be over in time form.
I got something here, and then I'll give Ben the last word, and we'll shut this down. But I wanted to leave it, and I'll give Ben the last word here. But, folks, like Ben was kind of hitting on there, just prepare. Make it part of your life. The big thing is you want to have a plan, discuss it, with the people that you got a plan with. And that's about all you should discuss it with. That's the first step. Secondly, it's about your crisis mode, all right? A lot of people, me and Ben say it all the time, everyone's got a different levels of crisis. Being in the military, sometimes you've seen things. If certain things will happen, you jump into your panic mode, which is, in the military, we train for crises. So therefore, when something happens, you don't panic, you move. You actually go into gear. You get into gear of doing this only because you're not shocked anymore. Where other people around you, the first thing they see that is horrific, they might just sit there, fall down, and melt right in front of you. So that's what it's about. Trying to understand a plan, and if you repeat it in your own head and you're bug out and what you're going to do, that takes a lot of anxiety right off your shoulders from the get-go, and you'll be able to help a lot of other people in that time of emergency, that crisis. So, and some of those things you can never prepare for, but at least if you have a plan in your head, you can run to that. If it's when you don't have any plan in your head is when extra panic and crisis set in, and you will literally sometimes fall apart. All right, I'm going to give Ben the last word here. We'll shut this down. God bless, Godspeed, folks. Here's Ben.
Yes, I kind of tackle in the back of what Mike said. Those of us who have military training, when something of a high stressful event occurs, we tend to rely on our training and not our emotions. Just for something that's been great reading, I got issued this way back in the military, and since then it's come out, it's declassified. It's by no means is it a fraction. I'm not breaking the laws or any rules. It already came out, but this is something you can find online, and you can actually download the whole entire book. And that's this guy right here. Let me see if I can't get you right here. There we go. Let's see here if I can get the top of it. Headquarters Department of the Army. And this is the 2002 edition. It's FM 3-05-70. It's a revise of the old Field Manual 2176. It's a survival manual. Now you think, oh, okay, well, that's all. I've seen magazines in this. Well, this comes from the Department of Army. And this goes over, basic survival stuff. And did I say you have to memorize that book? No. Some of us were required to in the military of doing different things. However, that's got good information. The more you know, the better you can operate. That's in a paperback form. I always say collect books. That's a great way to retain knowledge. And if something you can't get, electricity goes down, you're preparing for that quote-unquote SHTF type thing, having books, that kind of stuff, you'd never go wrong. Half of this book is talking about where the sun rises and sets, and that's how you can tell the cardinal directions of where you're standing at. Simplistic things like that honestly everybody should know. How to tell your north from south, how to find places on a map, real simple things that we all forget about. That's really good information. We rely more on our GPS than we do our five senses. And even in myself, I've seen how that can literally inhibit how you view the world around you. So again, I definitely would, champion what Mike was saying about learning how not to be stressed out or panic in a situation. Preparing for something mitigates the panic. And if you're in a position where people look up to you to be a strong individual in these situations, prepare yourself to play that role, because it may come sooner than later, but it won't be for the rest of your life. Think about it.
All right. Perfect, folks. We'll be back. Check the Patriot Hour for another. I got this recorded, so I'll probably dump it off over there for sure. What an awesome morning. I was glad to see you guys here. Thanks for joining us. And we love all you Patriots. Again, I'm going to get a video out later today over one of the coin winners. And some other stuff like that. That'll be just a special video for you guys. And again, we really, really appreciate it. I'm Mike. That was Ben.
Yes.
For the Patriot Hour. We'll see you guys back here real soon. Have a great afternoon, folks.
God bless.
Of the NSA senses that there's something wrong about these about queries. In other words, who's tapping into the database here and making political queries? Now, folks, some of you, I don't know your politics. I assume most of you are conservative, libertarian, or Republican, but that's fine either way. If you doubt any of what I'm telling you, just Google the FISA Intelligence Surveillance Court, their report on about queries. Because Mike Rogers goes to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and says, Houston, we got a problem. These queries are supposed to follow very specific guidelines about terrorism, and all these metrics have to be, you can't just spy on Americans in the database. The FISA court looks into it, comes back with a report that was released in March of 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, that is